The Biological Code Podcast, a podcast on Germanische Heilkunde. Today we're looking at a story about an enormous buildup of abdominal fluid and how, fortunately, it eventually resolved. The so-called water belly, or ascites. Anyone familiar with Germanische Heilkunde knows that the perception experienced during a biological conflict determines which significant biological special program begins. The brain then begins the program with remarkable precision based entirely on that perception. For example, if the conflict experience is perceived as an attack conflict, the cerebellum activates a special program affecting one of the body's inner membranes. The peritoneum responds to what is perceived as an attack against the abdomen. The pericardium responds to an attack against the heart, and so on. If the three criteria are fulfilled and the biological special program begins, the tissue strengthens itself by producing additional cells. This is the biological purpose. Nature reinforces the tissue to protect the body from further attacks. It is quite remarkable when you think about it. In animals, the peritoneum program is usually triggered by a very direct event, such as a kick or a blow to the abdomen. Even severe intestinal colic can be experienced in this way. But humans can also experience such conflicts in a figurative sense. Nothing has to happen physically. For instance, the thought of an upcoming abdominal operation can be experienced as an attack against the abdomen conflict. The body responds by thickening the peritoneum. A so-called peritoneal mesothelioma develops. The perception determines the exact relay in the brain that controls the organ. And this process begins instantly. Psyche, brain, and organ all at the same moment. So the idea that a surgeon might cut open the abdomen can quickly be experienced as such an attack conflict. When the operation is completed, or perhaps cancelled entirely, the conflict resolves and the healing phase begins. During healing, the extra tissue is broken down again with the help of specialized microbes. This healing phase brings swelling, inflammation, fatigue, fever, and often a real feeling of being ill. The swelling occurs due to fluid accumulation during the healing phase, and this is then called abdominal fluid, water belly, or ascites in medical terminology. But this fluid serves an important purpose. During the healing phase, it allows the intestines to gently float, preventing adhesions and intestinal obstruction. Once again, we see how intelligently the body is organized. Anyone who knows these connections will understand that healing takes time and brings with it certain symptoms. If these connections are not understood, however, a person can easily become caught in a vicious cycle. Most operations take place very soon after diagnosis. The small thickenings of the peritoneum are often just tiny spots and may not be recognized. But if surgery is postponed for several weeks, surgeons sometimes open the abdomen and then close it again immediately. The report may say the planned procedure was pointless because the whole peritoneum was already full of metastases. This is exactly what happened to Ingrid. She had been diagnosed with so-called liver cancer, what medicine calls a liver adenocarcinoma. Because of various preliminary examinations, the planned surgery was delayed by 4 to 6 weeks. When the operation finally took place, the surgeons simply opened and closed again. Nothing more was done. Around this time, Ingrid learned about Germanische Heilkunde and read one of Dr. Hammer's books. Shortly afterwards, she developed abdominal fluid, which, fortunately, was a sign that she had resolved her abdominal attack conflict. But a new pattern emerged. For almost 2 years, she lived with a chronic abdominal fluid buildup that continued to grow. And yet, she felt well. She had a good appetite, slept well, rode her bicycle, and went swimming. Still, the ascites would not disappear. Eventually, she called Dr. Hammer and asked why the abdominal fluid was not decreasing. The reason soon became clear. Friends and acquaintances were constantly coming to look at her abdomen. Particularly serious were the comments of a nurse who came twice a week to help Ingrid with household tasks. Each time she arrived, she expressed doubt. She said she had never seen anyone survive such severe ascites. She even told stories of others who had seemed well at first, but later died. Through these comments, Ingrid repeatedly experienced a renewed attack against the abdomen conflict, a conflict recurrence. As a result of these comments, she moved back into the active phase, and the abdomen temporarily became smaller again. Why? Because during the active phase, the peritoneum thickens again, while the accumulated fluid decreases. When Ingrid noticed her abdomen shrinking, she felt relieved, which moved her right back into the healing phase. And with the healing came fluid again. So the cycle continued. The abdomen would grow again as part of healing. Each day, Ingrid also measured her abdomen with a tape measure. When it increased in size, she became frightened again, triggering another relapse, and the abdomen would shrink once more. When Dr. Hammer patiently explained this pattern to her, she suddenly understood. Doctor, she said, I didn't realize this. From that moment on, she followed Dr. Hammer's advice, which was to laugh about her abdomen and think about it as little as possible, as well as stopping all measuring. And slowly, the spell was broken. The abdominal fluid began to decrease, gradually but steadily. Knowing Germanische Heilkunde had helped Ingrid resolve the original conflict, but she had not yet fully understood the deeper connections and had remained trapped in a cycle. Only by becoming aware of her perception, she could finally break this vicious cycle. A biological conflict requires a biological solution. It's like being pregnant. One cannot be a little pregnant. This is how a real biological solution changes everything. Germanische Heilkunde is knowledge anyone can learn. It truly belongs in every household and even in schools, so that people can understand the biology of their bodies and the connection with their biology. Learn it for yourself, because unfortunately, medical doctors are not allowed to learn about it. Yet. Learn to think biologically. The knowledge of Germanische Heilkunde belongs in every household. If you'd like to learn how to apply the 5 biological laws in everyday life, visit thebiologyproject.org. You can also find more about our association at urkraftleben.at. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Telegram, and Instagram. Thank you for listening. Until next time.